Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a topic that's suddenly become very real for hundreds of thousands of people across Thailand.
We are.
We're talking about the Thai Anti-Money Laundering Office, AMLO, or Por Ingor, and its new, very intense focus on the country's cooperative sector.
That's right. And looking through the sources you sent over, our mission today is pretty clear. We need to boil this down to what AMLO is actually looking for.
And why now? Why has this sector suddenly jumped from the back burner right to the front?
And most importantly, what this all means for the personal legal risk that co-op leaders are now facing. It's a big shift.
It really is. I mean, traditionally, you think of cooperatives, especially the savings and credit unions, as these sort of simple member-based groups, very different from the big commercial banks.
That was the old reality. But the argument in all our sources is that things have fundamentally changed.
So why is AMLO suddenly seeing them as, well, potential instruments for money laundering?
It's really about two things: scale and scope. Over the last decade or so, a lot of these co-ops have built up just huge reserves of capital.
Okay.
But more importantly, their business models have expanded way beyond their own members. They're into complex lending, offering money services, MSBs, which is all about moving funds quickly.
So they're acting like real financial institutions.
Functionally, yes.
Yeah.
And that sheer volume and the velocity of the money they're moving, that's what gets AMLO's attention. Every time.
And it seems like this change needed a real wake-up call. The sources all point to one specific, very public asset seizure case.
Absolutely. That case was the catalyst. AMLO seized assets from one big cooperative, but the impact didn't stop there. Not at all.
Why had it?
The AMLO officer in charge of the case started getting these frantic phone calls, dozens of them, from other co-ops all over the country.
And what were they saying?
They were reporting that they had sunk tens of millions of Thai baht into those very assets that had just been seized.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't some niche regulatory issue. This is a systemic risk to the whole national economy.
Exactly. That incident made it totally impossible for AMLO to look away. They realized that if one of these co-ops goes down, it could trigger a domino effect.
And that's where the audits come in.
Precisely. And this is the key takeaway for anyone in co-op leadership.
How?
AMLO is planning targeted audits, and they are focused entirely on compliance.
Just to be crystal clear, though, they're not auditing the financial books, are they? That's still the job of the cooperative's promotion department.
Correct. The CPD, they're focused on accounting, the internal health of the co-op, its duty to its members. AMLO is looking at external risk.
They want to see the paperwork.
They want to see if you have written policies, if your staff are trained, if you have the basic systems in place to stop money laundering before it starts.
And they're not going to audit everyone, so where are they starting?
Yeah, they're being very selective. High-risk areas first, so regions near the borders where illegal trade is a problem.
Makes sense.
Co-ops that are linked to some of these strained high-yield share schemes you see pop up, like lottery shares or van shares.
And they're specifically targeting co-ops in or near the three southern border provinces. Why the specific focus there?
That connects directly to the other half of AMLO's job, counterterrorism financing. That region is just inherently higher risk because of regional instability and the potential for illicit money to move across borders.
So if your co-op is in one of those zones, you're already on the radar.
You have to be. Your level of vigilance needs to be much, much higher. You're at the crossroads of both domestic and international scrutiny.
Which brings us to the bigger picture, the macro stakes. I mean, why should an American bank care if a domestic co-op in Thailand is compliant or not?
Because the Thai AML law isn't really a domestic law. It's born from international mandates, mainly from the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF.
Yeah, FATF.
And this is the critical part to understand. AML law is the only Thai law that has this kind of direct, binding international oversight.
Let's put this in context. Before we talk about today, let's look at the last time Thailand got this wrong. I mean, how bad was the crisis back in 2012?
Oh, it was bad. Back in 2012, 2013, FATF put Thailand on its high-risk list, and the economic fallout was immediate and severe.
How so?
For starters, international trade partners, especially American companies, found that any money transfer coming from Thailand was suddenly under a microscope. Their own regulators flagged everything.
So trade just grinds to a halt, costs go way up because of delays. It's a nightmare for anyone doing business internationally.
Exactly. But the real crisis point, the moment everyone panicked, was when the credit card companies got involved.
What happened?
The Thai Credit Card Club got a notice from Visa and MasterCard, a direct warning.
Saying what?
saying that if Thailand wasn't taken off that high-risk list, and fast, they would turn off all credit cards nationwide.
Wait, not just foreign cards?
All of them. Every single one. That's when you realize that compliance isn't just about banks. It's about the fundamental plumbing of the entire economy. It's a national security issue.
And that risk is still there. You mentioned co-ops are getting into money service business activities.
Yes. Things like rapid money transfers, some even had their own ATM card systems. That stuff puts you on the international stage, risk-wise. What AMLO is saying is if you act like a bank, you have to comply like a bank.
Let's pivot to the legal side of this. You said AML law is a hybrid, part criminal, part civil. How has the actual definition of money laundering changed?
It's gotten much broader. The old idea was about cleaning dirty money. Now, the definition is simply introducing funds into the financial system.
And it doesn't matter if the funds are from a crime or not.
Doesn't matter. You introduce funds, and then you move them out for any purpose. The moment the money moves in and out, the process is complete. It's the transaction itself they're looking at.
So a co-op can become an instrument of money laundering without any criminal intent, just by having weak procedures.
That's almost always how it happens, yes. For asset seizure, intent is almost irrelevant. Criminal law needs intent. But for asset forfeiture, AML law uses a civil standard.
Which only requires suspicion.
Sufficient suspicion. And that gives AMLO incredible power to seize assets.
Let's talk about that power. You used a really powerful analogy, the crocodile farm, to explain the fruits of the crime concept.
Right. So imagine a drug dealer takes 10 million THB of dirty money and uses it to buy, say, 4 crocodiles to start a farm.
Okay.
Years go by, the farm is a huge success. It's now worth 500 million THB. AMLO comes in and seizes the entire 500 million THB farm.
The whole thing.
The whole thing, because it all grew from that illicit seed money. The burden of proof then flips to the owner to prove which crocodiles, which part of the farm, came from legitimate money. An impossible task.
So for a co-op, if a member uses tainted land as collateral for a loan, that collateral can be seized and the co-op gets dragged right into it.
Exactly. The co-op's legitimate assets are now at risk just because they touch dirty collateral, and they trace this stuff relentlessly.
You mentioned a case about tracing money through personal relationships.
Yes, a classic tracing case. Illicit funds moved through multiple accounts, eventually landed with a mistress.
Oh.
She then used that money to buy a car for someone else, entirely a taxi driver. But because the source of the funds was illegal, AMLO seized the car from the taxi driver.
Wow.
They follow the money, not the names on the accounts.
This level of risk makes personal responsibility absolutely critical. Let's talk about who is on the hook. Where does the liability flow from the organization to an actual person?
It flows downwards. First, the organization gets hit with huge fines. Then it moves to the individual leadership.
So top down, the board of directors, the chairman.
They're first in line, especially for policy. If there is no written, board-approved AML policy in the first place, the chairman is personally liable.
And what if the policy exists, but, say, a staff member down the line makes a mistake on the paperwork?
That's where it gets interesting. If the board created the policy and then delegated the work, and this is key with a written instruction or a board resolution.
It has to be in writing.
Everything has to be in writing. Then the liability shifts down to the operational manager or the specific staff member who failed to follow the written procedure. Verbal instructions mean nothing. They won't protect you.
Let's talk about the crimes themselves. The so-called predicate offenses that generate this money. That list has grown.
It's more than doubled. It went from 11 serious high-level crimes like drug trafficking to 25 today.
And the new additions are what makes this so relevant for co-ops.
Exactly. The 14 new offenses are much smaller, more everyday crimes that, a typical co-op member might actually commit. This dramatically expands the co-op's risk exposure.
Give us some examples of these new everyday crimes.
Things like receiving stolen goods, intellectual property infringement like selling pirated software or movies, and natural resource offenses.
Natural resource offenses, like what?
Illegal logging, running an unlicensed sawmill, things like that.
So this is where customer due diligence, or CDD, becomes so important. You have to know what your members do for a living.
Precisely. As a co-op manager, you have to do a risk assessment of your membership. Do you have junk collectors who might be handling stolen goods? Do you have members who own sawmills?
You can't just treat everyone the same.
You can't. You can't treat a member who owns a potentially high-risk business the same way you treat a member who sells noodles. The due diligence has to match the risk.
Which leads us right to the compliance checklist. What are the absolute must-have written policies that AMLO is going to be looking for?
Okay, so beyond that main foundational policy that the board has to approve, AMLO expects to see written manuals covering at least 5 core areas.
Let's run through them. What's number 1?
First is customer acceptance. This is your rulebook for onboarding. How do you decide who to let in? What information do you collect at the start?
Okay, number 2.
Risk management. This explains how you classify your customers: high, medium, low risk. And it details what extra checks you do for the high-risk ones.
What's the third area?
Third is staffing and training. You have to show that your staff are properly trained on all these procedures and that someone in management has clear responsibility for oversight.
And fourth is the audit function.
Yes, internal audit. And it has to be independent. That's critical. It needs to report directly to the board or top management, not to the people it's auditing. That prevents compliance failures from being buried.
That makes sense. And the fifth and final area?
Fifth is policy review and improvement. This stuff isn't static. You need a formal process to update your policies when FATF changes its rules, or even when your co-op introduces a new product.
Now, within CDD, there's sanction screening. What does that actually involve?
It means you have to check all your members, new and existing, against official blacklists.
What kind of lists?
There's the UN list for international terrorism financing, and then there's a specific Thailand list, which is often related to the disturbances in the southern border provinces we talked about.
And if you find a match,
you must immediately refuse the transaction, freeze any assets they already have with you, and file a report with AMLO. No exceptions.
And for members that are companies, you have to find the beneficial owner.
Right. You can't just stop at the company name. You have to dig down and find the actual human being, the natural person who ultimately benefits from or controls that company.
Let's talk about transactions. You said the AML definition is way broader than what people normally think.
Far broader. In AML law, a transaction is any activity related to a legal act. It doesn't have to be completed.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. A member walks up to the counter, fills out a deposit slip for 3 million THB in cash. The staff counts the money, but right before it's entered into the system, the member says, "Never mind," and takes the money back.
So no transaction happened technically?
In commercial law, no. But in AML law, yes, a transaction did occur. That activity took place. Your staff need to be trained to recognize that as a reportable event.
That is a huge difference.
Oh.
Okay, what are the hard reporting thresholds? The pass-fail test.
2 main ones. First, cash transaction reports. Any transaction with physical currency coins or banknotes of 2 million THB or more, deposit or withdrawal, it has to be reported immediately. Miss that, and it's a very easy violation to prove.
And the second one?
Asset transaction reports. This is for transactions involving high-value assets. So land, cars, machinery, boats, aircraft. Anything valued at 5 million THB or more also has to be reported.
And finally, record keeping. How long do you have to keep all this CDD paperwork?
For 5 years. But here's the detail that trips everyone up. The 5-year clock doesn't start from the date of the last transaction.
When does it start?
It starts on the date the relationship with the member is formally terminated.
Wait, terminated? So if I have a member who hasn't used their account in 20 years but never officially closed it, I have to keep their file forever.
Precisely. That is the rule. It's the difference between a compliant co-op and one facing a massive fine.
There's one last challenge here. The law currently only applies to co-ops with 2 million THB or more in share capital. Your sources say that's causing chaos.
It's a huge headache. It's causing 2 main problems. One, you have some smaller co-ops deliberately shrinking their share capital just to get under that 2 million limit and avoid the rules.
Gaming the system.
And 2, you have co-ops, often with lots of elderly members whose share capital fluctuates. They might be over the limit 1 year, so they have to comply, then they drop below it the next year, then pop back over again. It's an administrative nightmare of unintentional non-compliance.
So AMLO wants to change that.
They're actively trying to get the law amended to remove that threshold completely. Just apply the rules to everyone.
So wrapping this all up, if you're listening to this and you're involved in a co-op, the message is pretty clear.
It is. The sources are very clear that non-compliance is almost never about bad intentions. It's about a lack of process, a lack of training.
So there's time to fix it.
Absolutely. There's a window of time, often almost a year after a new regulation is announced, to get your house in order. Use that time now, build the policies, train the staff, and avoid becoming the subject of the next big audit.
That really is the call to action. And to leave you with one final thought, this whole push, the expanding list of crimes, the intense scrutiny, it's all being driven by Thailand's need to align with global financial standards.
It is.
So if the law is moving in that direction, as we see with the plan to scrap that 2 million THB rule, the real question is, how long can any cooperative, big or small, truly stay isolated from global financial accountability? It feels like a one-way street.
It certainly does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
And thank you for guiding us through it. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.